Good evening. Thanks for having me. I especially appreciate the questions that I got in advance. Much rather answer questions and make sure that you're getting the information that you want to get out of this rather than just listening to me talk. So I took all of the questions and I grouped them into three sections. Basically, a couple of the questions were relative to things before I started an actual business. What were some of the businesses I started when I was a kid? Why did I focus on Japanese in college? And basically, why did I drop out of college and start working at a call center? So I'll tell you a little story. Hopefully it's kind of funny. It was kind of funny for me. When I was a kid, I started a bunch of different, not really businesses, but I had some ideas. I had some inventions. So it was probably, well, I don't know, you guys might not have even been around by then, but it was 1982 or so, and there was some room break-ins and burglaries at the Brookside dorm. So I thought, this would be a good opportunity for me to invent a burglar deterrent system. So my father decided he would put an ad in the Buffalo or the Houghton Milieu to advertise this burglar deterrent system that I had created. And he walked me up to the dorm to introduce my first and only customer, and I proceeded to install the alarm, which was a string with a tennis ball on it positioned above the door so that it would hit you as you walked into the room. So one of the other questions was relative to failure in business and how do I deal with failure. And that's a pretty good example of failure in my book. And it's really failure. If you're going to succeed, you absolutely have to fail. And you really should just embrace it and enjoy it, learn from it, and do your best not to repeat it. So from there, I did grow up here. I grew up in Houghton. I went to Fillmore. In 1987, I left, and we moved up to Buffalo. When we left, I was in 8th grade, and I had the opportunity to take the 9th grade exams and possibly skip 9th grade. So I took the exams, and I lucked out, and I passed them all except for English. So when I got up to Buffalo, I was basically in 10th grade with the exception of my one English class that I had to take with the 9th graders. So all of my friends were 10th graders, and the 10th graders were a lot cooler than the 9th graders. So I spent my time with them. And I really didn't plan ahead very well because when they graduated, I was left with one class and no friends. Well, a couple friends. And in the school that I was in, there was no tolerance for late arrival, early dismissal. None of that was possible. So I was told that I had to come in at 8:30 in the morning, study hall, lunch, study hall. My class was at 2, and I could leave when the bell rang at the end of it. And I didn't think that was a really great plan for me. So I had the opportunity to come and go to Houghton Academy for my senior year. I lived in the dorm. I think it was an excellent opportunity for me. And it was kind of an introduction to some of the skills that I needed to actually start a business. And I was telling Mr. Stocken this morning, my first class in the morning at Houghton was an accounting class. And the rule was, as soon as you finished the accounting workbook, you could hand it in and skip the class until your final exam. So a couple days later, I handed in the workbook, and it was done. And I never had to go to first class in the morning. And I'm not a breakfast eater, really, so I got to skip it and sleep in. But it was fascinating. It was interesting. It was easy. And I use it every day. It's a very big part of my job as the accounting function. I have a great CFO, but I like to keep my hands in and do that sort of thing. So when I graduated, I went up to Buffalo. I went to Canisius College for a year. I didn't really take anything of interest. I went to the University of Buffalo, and the only class that I wanted to take was Japanese. I had had experience in the dorm with mostly Asian kids, some Koreans, Chinese, Japanese, and I had some Japanese friends, and I was very fascinated with the language because it was difficult and challenging, but also the culture and the hierarchy of the respect and the manners and that sort of thing. And I thought that was that was interesting. So I took Japanese, and that was pretty much all I took in college. I probably shouldn't tell you guys this, right? 'Cause, I did that for a year and a half, and for me, college just wasn't the right pace, I guess. I learn a little differently, and I prefer to learn on my own schedule. So I dropped out of college after a couple of years, and I took a job at a call center. And it turned out that this call center was also a service bureau. Then they invented the technology of talking classifieds and talking personals and that sort of technology. So my job was to answer the phone when somebody called up and they wanted to put their single white male looking for a single white female ad in the paper and type that stuff in, and then they would be given a number to call in and record their message. On the flip side, there was people that wanted to put their car up there. They would post the stuff about their car and call in and speak the details of their car. A woman went on maternity leave in the graphics design department, so it was my opportunity to really step up, and I didn't know anything about graphics design. So I gave him, I said, give me the weekend, and if I can't do it on Monday, go ahead and hire somebody else. So I spent the weekend, and I learned graphics design, and I came in, and on Monday, I did the job. I got it done, and that was exciting. It kind of opened my eyes that if I really apply myself, I could probably do just about anything. And so we looked around, and sure enough, there was an opportunity to migrate their mainframe database to an actual relational database, and asked if I could do that. I took that task on and got that done. And then they had some system issues with the telephone systems that answered the 800 numbers and 900 numbers. And again, was an opportunity for me to go and learn it and figure it out. And from there, I went to a competing company that the gentleman that had actually created the technology had sold the business and had started a new one, doing exactly the same thing, but mostly for the Canadian market. So one day he called me at my job and said that his network administrator had quit and locked down their network, and they were pretty much out of business until they opened it back up again. And I got the offer of, we'll pay you anything you want, just come over and get our network open. And that was good enough. So I hopped in my car and I drove over and got their network to work and took the job. It was an exciting opportunity for me at that point because they were a 5-person company. And when I left, they were, about a year and a half later, they were about a 70 or 80-person company. So the business side of this person, the gentleman that ran the business, he was fantastic. I learned a lot about business in general. But he had a big character flaw, in my opinion, and he didn't treat his staff very well. The morale was terrible. There really was no culture in the company. Most people in town knew him and did not like him. And most employees really didn't like coming to work and working for him. So I was probably a year and a half in, and I had a weekend where we were going to switch their network from one technology to another. And I volunteered to do it, even though I didn't know it. So Friday I started this task, and I spent Friday night, all day Saturday, Saturday night, Sunday. Got it done. Monday morning, when he walked in and stepped over me because I was sleeping on the floor, his only question was, is it working? And I took offense to that, and I quit. Went and decided I was going to start my own company because this technology is not that hard, and business doesn't appear to be that hard. So I was working for a company called Direct Response Marketing, and I talked to a sales guy and one of the graphics designer, and I had assembled a team of people that were also disgruntled and willing to leave and go start this venture with me. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any funding. I had no experience. But I also didn't have any of any of the reasons why I wouldn't want to start a business now, or things that might prevent you from taking that risk, in that I wasn't married, I didn't have kids, I didn't have a house, I was making plenty of cash flow at that point. So I was willing to take the risk, and I started a company called VRM. and that was mostly so that while I was on the phone calling up my existing customers from this last company, that they wouldn't notice the difference, that it was DRM and VRM, and it actually worked. I was able to get one of them. So I was able to borrow one of these customers, and we started VRM, voice response marketing. It was a replication of what he was doing. So I had the customer, and I didn't have an office, I didn't have a business, I didn't really have anything other than the idea. We flew this guy up to Kingston, Ontario, and pretended that my family friend, he had a cottage up there, and we pretended it was our company cottage. Lied. Okay, sorry. So we had our company cottage up there. Anyway, long story short, we went down the road with this guy, and we built the application for him. And it turned out he kind of found out what was going on and decided he was going to go back. And that was really an eye-opener that maybe the ethics that my dad used to teach probably should have come into play there. And looking at him and his business skills and what he had done and his dominance in the marketplace, it was really it was the right time to make the move into a completely different direction. And this, I guess, goes on to the second grouping of the questions relative to starting a business. And this is kind of the phase that I was at. I didn't have any money from a funding standpoint. I didn't have any experience. I had never started or run a business. I had never managed people. I ran my own department. But a lot of things aligned perfectly, maybe luck, I don't know. One of the people that had left the business with me was dating a gentleman whose parents had passed away and had left him a fair amount of money, and he was willing to risk that money. My father was able to risk some of that money. So we had enough to get it up and running, and we decided we were going to go a little bit different with the technology and build a company called IVR Inc., which created and hosted interactive voice response applications. We did a lot of inbound phone calls where the computer would ask a series of questions, you would answer with your touch-tone phone, and we would capture that data and send it off to whoever wanted that information. And we did a lot of outbound calls where we would place calls out to people and leave those annoying messages on your answering machine, politicians and that sort of stuff. But we didn't have any customers. And we had a little bit of money at this point, but we had no infrastructure. I had no relations with good legal counsel, good financial counsel. I didn't have any staff. And the one gentleman who was going to be my business partner and software developer had a family and had a full-time job and wasn't really able to commit. And then I got a customer all of a sudden. It was pretty interesting. I had this customer who was willing to give us the business, and they needed the application up in about a week. So I learned how to program that week and built the application, and it actually turned out to be our biggest customer throughout the entire life of the business. That was a company in California that did surveys for Domino's Pizza and Papa John's Pizza. And so if you ever got a Domino's Pizza with an 800 number on it to call, it was probably hitting our call center and asking you if you were happy with your pizza. So we got this up, and we had some cash flow going, but we didn't have any experience marketing. And from a business standpoint, I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons most companies fail when they start up is that they don't know how to market. You know, they've got a great idea. Maybe they're a techie or an inventor, and they've got this great idea, and maybe they've even gone out and gotten funding. But they have no idea how to attract the customers. And that was difficult for us as well. But then the internet came along, and we seized that opportunity to attract customers as opposed to going to get them. I'm not a big fan of getting on the phone and calling people up looking for business, especially in that particular field where they don't know they need the service and they don't know what it does and they don't know anything about it. So we were able to build a website that attracted customers in, and that business grew up pretty well, and it was a good business model. I don't want to say about that. But the marketing side of it was truly the most difficult. Once we got our name out there